All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another, if you're watching on YouTube or an X live version of the London's Blue podcast, coming to you after Chelsea have vanquished the recent demons of Brentford. That's right. If you go by CJ's 3-word match review on Twitter, you believe the Blues in this one, getting it done against a London rival in Brentford, who have absolutely been a thorn in our side in recent memory. But Chelsea, 3 more points in a wonderful weekend in the Premier League. Almost every single result breaking our way, and then some. An opportunity next weekend, Nick. It might be fleeting. It might only be for a couple moments, but a win against Everton would put Chelsea at the top of the table. We're going to talk about a lot of things in this match, about how Chelsea got it done, the win today, a phenomenal result. Nicolas Jackson coming up in the very end moments after maybe getting a little bit of ridicule, the Cucurella ebb and flow of his chaos experience that he had today. But mood, attitude, vibes, I mean, second place, great weekend, Chelsea getting it done.
Dan, it's a great match review for a drink, and I'm just going to sneak up a Guinness here. Let me just...
Glad we got that live. Very important to make
I'll
sure
tell you what,
the Guinness experience was there.
It's so good. And look, this was not, we knew what kind of game this was going to be coming in. They always play us tough. And despite Chelsea dominating for 80 minutes of this game, which we absolutely did, it of course comes down to a nervy end. I mean, Thomas Frank teams just do not quit. It's a credit to them. It's a credit to how they play. But Chelsea were just superior in almost every facet of this game. And as our good friend Ollie Glanville would say, in a game like this, in kind of a really shithouse game, like this was a proper shithouse game for Chelsea. The result is the only thing that matters, and the 3 points are the only thing that matters. And, how many times last year did we have opportunities to climb, right? And we just didn't take them. We couldn't do it. We couldn't get over the hump. This was a big, big result for Chelsea. So I'm very excited about that.
And Sam, I know you've been doing the miles. You were in Kazakhstan to enjoy a wonderful win for Chelsea in the Conference League as we continue our campaign there. General thoughts and feelings on the match. They align with Nick's in the thought that this was a massive result just to get the bogey off the back necessarily, or was there anything else that maybe you felt like this was just a needing to get whatever you needed done, 1-0, 2-1, whatever it was going to be, the win was the most important thing?
No, absolutely. I think when there are certain bogey teams that you really need to do anything to get ahead of, this was one of those teams. And home or away, Brentford are brutally tough, like Nick correctly points out. So yeah, Bournemouth away, out of the way. Wolves away, out of the way. Brentford, one half of the journey completed, and home safe and dry. So very happy with that. Obviously, the last 15-20 minutes I did not like at all. But yeah, really no complaint there in terms of the result and where it takes us to the table. So super happy.
I mean, just for to recollect it, the last time Chelsea won against Brentford in any competition was back in the 22nd of December, 2021. Like, it has been a series of losses and draws. Yes.
Oh,
it was before God. This, it was a 2-2 draw, an 0-2 loss, an 0-2 loss, a 0-0 draw, and a 4-1 loss. So it had been a very long time to get this result against Brentford. So I think we have to celebrate that and recognize it. I think as we just kind of start to shift into some of the conversation about this match, it really was all Chelsea for that first half. I mean, there was almost nothing going on. It was 15 shots on in total to the 1 that Brentford registered in that first half. We had 3 shots on target to their none. They had 3 goalkeeper saves with another Flecken performance that absolutely got me to say it's an FOF, like fuck off Flecken moment, because he was popping up in all the wrong times to make life difficult for our attackers. But I think in general, there were, I think, a couple of standouts in that first half. I mean, we were finding the right avenues. We were getting a lot of opportunity in the left-hand side, Sam. And I think the way Maresca was using Cucurella in this game to kind of push forward. How far forward he was in attack was really a little bit of a different wrinkle than what we've seen so far with Cucurella when he's been on the pitch. So just like how far he got up, how much that actually added to the attack and gave us a little bit of a different look, different option.
I think it was a dual decision to do so. We discussed this in the group chat, but Maresca tends to favor this move whenever there is a dangerous right winger, where Cucurella just moves into a left attacking midfielder position, and that forces the right winger back. Maresca also made the switch against Brennan Johnson, where he looked very, very dangerous in the first half against Spurs. And the second half, Johnson just couldn't get any threat in because he had to drop deeper. He had to start from a deeper position. So you're also pushing Cucurella closer to where he wants to be in those attacking areas where he can press, win the ball, but you're also pushing Mbuemo back, and he's supremely dangerous in those attacking positions. And if you look at Brentford's tactical profile, they did not have a target man up front today because Igor was injured or picked up a knock in training. So the only out ball they had was a long ball to the right channel, and we took that away from them by virtue of that switch. And it also, Maresca also likes doing this against passive teams or back fives, teams that want to sit back and not give you anything at all. He likes sort of like overloading the center, making sure that they're getting a lot of issues in those central areas. And Brentford, in terms of the time that they spend in the attacking third of the opposition, it's just 27%, which is the second lowest of any team in the Premier League. So Maresca knew that this was a game where they would come to sit, hit you on the break with Wissa and Mbuemo. And Maresca said, "Okay, I know what you're going to do. I'll take two of your biggest things away, and let's see how you respond."
And Nick, it felt like that, outside of the finishing in that first half, I mean, all of the things that Sam just mentioned in terms of the way we decided to position ourselves, how we set up, everything outside of the actually getting the ball in the back of the net worked pretty flawlessly in that first half in terms of deployment, in terms of personnel. Anyone in particular within the first half that you're like, hey, exceptional performance, like really like helped make things hum, make things tick?
Yeah, I mean, I think both fullbacks were really, really good in the first half. I thought Cucurella was exceptionally good. I thought that Malo Gusto had a much better performance than we've seen from him recently. There were times where they were kind of alternating who was stepping up into the midfield. I thought that Malo Gusto was much better tracking back in this game, making tackles. You saw a little bit more fight from him in this one, almost like, Caicedo going to right back instead of him probably didn't feel good. And so almost like this is, as long as Reece James is out, this is my spot. Don't even think about doing that again. Like, I'm going to play really, really hard. That was kind of the vibe I got from him. So I just want to give Malo Gusto some credit because, I think there's been a lot of frustration around him this year. He has not played up to the level that we saw him last year. He's obviously being asked to do a way different thing than Pochettino asked him to do. And he's not able to get forward as much. So he really has to, I think, do a lot of his diligence defensively now. And so we'll see. We'll see how he adapts. But I was impressed with him in the first half.
Well, it's interesting. You look across that entire defensive line. So Gusto, Tosin, Colwell, and Cucurella, all of their heat maps are super red on outside of Cucurella on the other half of the pitch. Like, it is all within the halfway line forward that Colwell, with the way that he was getting involved and his kind of crosses in, the amount of crossing opportunities that he found with maybe a little bit more accuracy in the first half than he did in the second half. Tosin was basically red on the center circle. And then Malo Gusto, massive red blob just past the halfway line up to the kind of penalty area. Like, in general, really, really strong, pushing forward, making compact, which I think frustrated a lot of our attackers because there wasn't a ton of space because of how compact Brentford was playing, particularly on the right-hand side for the majority of the first half.
Sam, I don't know how you feel about this, but I was actually encouraged by the patience that we showed for a lot of this game. Like, Brentford obviously were sitting back in that kind of 5-3-2, low block look that we've seen from them so often. And if there wasn't a pass on that was a guaranteed completed pass, Chelsea would just take a minute, reset, go back. And I know that that's frustrating to watch sometimes. And like, certainly what we're doing is way different than what like Manchester City and boring Pep ball do. But like, I also think against this team, you cannot give them like easy or early turnovers where they can break. We've seen them hurt us like that so many times. And I thought the patience was actually a sign of maturity today. I don't know what you think about that.
I couldn't have phrased it better, Nick, to be very honest. There was one move that we sort of, I think, relied on in terms of losing the ball, where Maresca said that's okay to lose the ball in. And that was the left half space cross that Colville kept hitting into the far post. And I think that was something that they exploited in terms of the wing back arriving at the far post, and you've got a 2v1 there. And if you see Cucurella's goal, it is the exact mirror move on the other side where Noni Madueke has the ball. Cucurella makes a run into the left half space, and then he actually goes in and scores the header. But other than that, it was just so efficient. It was safe, and it was essentially what Pep would do against a lot of teams, saying, don't lose the ball, don't give them an opportunity to break, like you mentioned. So I think that was, 90% of the reason why they only had one shot in the first half. 73% of the ball in the first half, very controlled, almost a wise grip on everything that they did. And ceding that control in the second half, where Brentford came out flying, is the reason why I think it became a little topsy-turvy towards the end. And we really should have controlled it better. If we could have extended that to the last 15 minutes, it would have been a clean sheet as well. But the first half was, I think, one of the best halves against Brentford we've had since they've been in the Premier League. And without question, it was a great, great coaching job by Maresca.
There's, I think, a lot of players we can kind of praise on the day. I mean, I think in general, Jackson eventually coming good for his goal there. Palmer had some fantastic passes that, he didn't get a chance to necessarily net a goal, but this was kind of one for him. I think, Nick, would it be anyone other than maybe Moises Caicedo as your player of the match? Like, I felt like he was the one that I've kind of dialed in on, even though he maybe looked a little leggy to start. But I think in general, just some of his interceptions, the way he was reading the game, some of the forward balls where I'm like, just get on the end of it. we will get a goal. I continue to be more and more impressed. I continue to feel like Liverpool fans are probably looking at this. They're maybe, if they're on this stream watching, they're looking and saying, why did we pony up like an extra 5, 10, 15 million pounds? Because like he is absolutely proving again, week in, week out, doesn't matter where he plays. It doesn't matter what the tactical formation is. It doesn't matter who the opposition is. Like he is just so damn good.
Yeah, I think Cucurella lost it for me at the end, unfortunately. Who I think I would have had him up there for sure, and Madueke probably. I think those are the other two. But I mean, yeah, you look at what Caicedo does in this game, and it's absolutely bananas. I mean, he's just everywhere, and he's just proving to me to be a different kind of guy. I mean, we're looking at 79 touches, 85% pass completion. 3 out of 4 long balls in this game. Not as good on some of the duels, but that's okay. I'm not overly fussed about that. He only had a couple tackles and 4 interceptions. It felt like more, frankly, because he seemed to be in the right place at the right time. But as Ollie's calling out, and I think it's right, he's also basically shadowing Mbuemo all game. And Mbuemo is a great player. Like, make no mistake about it. If Mbuemo was on any of like the top 8 teams, really, if he was in a team with a little bit more quality out of midfield, you would see this guy get 15 plus goals a season every season. Like, he's a really, really technical, good player. Caicedo shut him down for most of the game. Of course, the one time that Caicedo gets caught in midfield at the end, that's what happens. And we've seen that story multiple times. Mbuemo scores against us off of a breakaway down the side out of nowhere. So probably is my man of the match. I think I look at him and Madueke probably as the two that really stood out to me.
And Sam, do you have a different opinion on kind of player of the match or individuals that you kind of looked at as being maybe most impactful in the end result here?
Well, I thought Tosin was on track to win it for me until that Mbuemo goal, where he just committed and got it all wrong. But yeah, I think lost it there, and then Moises Caicedo, like Nick said, had to be the number one player. I also want to spare a thought for Rob Sanchez, who looked absolutely
Yeah.
gutted, on that 1v1 because he was sensational until then. He had some very big high claims on Brentford's free kicks and set pieces, and they're very, very good at those. So he just came flying out, dealt with each and every one of them, and also had some really, like, he had that excellent save from, what was it, Norgard, that he tipped over the bar. And I thought, wow, this is a turning point. And then we go on and and basically gift him a 1v1. He looked absolutely frustrated, but superb performance from him as well. The defense looked very good. But if you can wipe those last 15 minutes away from memory, yeah, excellent, excellent all around. My three-word match review was actually hive mind win. It generally felt like a very, very collective performance. So glad with the entire team, to be honest.
Sam, I almost thought, given we've had some of the conversation in the preview episodes about Enzo's ability and his kind of return into form here, now going 6 matches in the Premier League in a row with either a goal or assist in every one of those games, being another person you would highlight. And I'm actually more interested in, what do you think the benefit now of Caicedo potentially being able to kind of do what he does? Has that given Enzo a little bit more latitude, or like, why are we seeing such a different Enzo Fernandez right now in this exact moment with this type of great sustained run of attacking impetus as he now is at 7 goal contributions, his best ever senior league season in football?
I think we definitely touched upon this last time out, where I think it's a lot to do with how fit he looks genuinely. I think he's definitely amped it up in terms of how well he's able to cover ground, and his overall tendencies in terms of how well he controls within space, how well he's able to execute his actions has improved. I thought he had a pretty poor first 25, 30 minutes where he gave the ball away a couple of times. There was one instance where he gave the ball away in his own half, and it went straight to Jon Vissa inside the box and led to a shot, which I think Tosin sort of blocked out. But other than that, he's now realized that if Gusto and Cucurella are the other options that have been thrust into the left 10, then he has to make a difference. He has to be able to make that left 10 position his own. Today he played in the right 10 and Palmer played on the left. But if that's the position that he has to play to make it happen, then goals and assists have to be in the picture. And that's 11 goal or assist contributions in the last 9 games, which is like in the last 35, 40 days, which is absolutely tremendous. So if he's able to add that to the technical skills that he has, we know he switches it better than anybody else in the team. We know he's an incredible deep progressor. So you also have the option of, playing him deeper and evading the press against tougher sides. So I think Enzo himself has realized that there's an opportunity to be had when the other number 10s like Nkunku and Felix are not getting a chance in. So the fact that he's able to combine those things together, I think plays very well in his favor.
You know,
Nick, do you agree,
one
like, in terms of the same assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was fine today. I think it was a tough game. There wasn't a ton of room between the lines for him to kind of make an impact, and he does get the assist, which is good. There are a lot of like low mid sevens in the team today, and again, when you win, it doesn't matter. So I'm happy enough.
We had a question on YouTube as we're kind of talking about just players and their impact on the day. George asking, compared to last year's, Jackson gained his confidence. And, if he had 7 total shots in this game, expected goals would have been 1.22. He got his one in the end. You would argue that there were a couple that looked like they could have been a whole lot easier of a goal to potentially put into the back of the net. But he got it done. He had 2 shots on target, 4 shots off target, one blocked. I mean, Nick, are you feeling better about him continuing to lead the line? I know we looked at the last match against Tottenham. We felt like maybe he was struggling a little in that one, but there's not a lot of like great channels to run through, particularly in that first half within how compact it was. And like what we have seen is actually he benefits from having just a little bit more space to really kind of attack from versus being kind of called upon in very, very tight areas.
We got the full Nico today, didn't we? This was
goal, yeah, misses that should have been a goal, goals that should have been misses, everything in between.
Just, I mean, tons of energy and effort defensively. There was a moment early in the first half where he tracks all the way back to the corner flag and, defends and wins a goal kick. And everyone in that corner was just like standing ovation for that sort of effort. And we've seen that from him and Noni and Jaden Sancho in this game, out of nowhere. Like, there was a lot of extra effort being put in to make sure there weren't any easy chances. So he's doing all that. We saw the good and the bad with some of his hold-up play where he couldn't get a touch for a little bit, and then he makes a spectacular touch and plays, someone like Noni in for a breakaway. We saw him miss a sitter, and then we saw him forget how to run for a shot on target. And then we saw him put a goal away that, was not an easy finish, and it was right past Flecken at the near post. And it really, really was the full Nico. There's some, a little bit of drunken master to him, sometimes where his body doesn't always move in a very straightforward manner. Sometimes he's a little off balance, but regains his balance. And, he is an exceptionally talented player. I think there's been a little bit of like, when's he going to score again? And he scores the winner today. So, again, 9 Premier League goals already this season. Not even halfway through the year, on track for 20. If he gets to 20, good things are happening.
And plenty of good things happen, particularly again with Chelsea getting the win. One of the things that I had an interesting question on, and I mean, when you look at who was available on the bench and who wasn't, the way the subs weren't used in this match, Sam, we only saw Nkunku come in for Jackson the 83rd minute. You flip over to Brentford and they started making changes in the 63rd minute, in the 75th, 76th minute, and also the 86th minute. They got a little fresher from that like 75th minute forward and really started to make life difficult for Chelsea. But then you look at maybe, is Dewsbury Hall the person you want to bring in to try to make a change here? You're not bringing Jorgensen to, you're not necessarily maybe bringing in DSC. So it felt maybe a little forced by who he put on the bench with, Neto being out suspended, Mudryk being doubtful for this game. We know that West and Reese are not available. It did feel just maybe odd in who was there and how they were used. Did you have kind of questions or concerns about maybe some of the late game management from Maresca in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I had concerns. There was obviously, like, all of us could see it, that you would probably want to rejuvenate the side with a couple of changes. But um, would you throw in Axel Disasi? Would you throw in Dewsbury Hall, Renato Vega in central midfield? My answer is no. Against a very physical Brentford side, even guys like Tyreek George, when you know that they're sort of physically solid and have a back five and very aggressive down the wings, then obviously you want to play your cards very close to your chest. But I think Maresca just looked at his bench and said, I don't know if it's the right thing to do today. So his hands were tied, maybe. But otherwise, I think his game management has been pretty fine. I was looking at the subs that he was making, and he's probably like mid-table in terms of the number of subs he's made and the minutes played by each sub. So I think he's bang average. He's not like his idol Pep, who just doesn't make subs at all and tends to just rotate the side and relies on that to take him forward. But yeah, so far so good. I think it was just Nkunku the only maybe viable option that he had. I'm sure if he had Pedro Neto, Joao Felix, and Mudryk, we would have seen probably all 3 of them come on. But yeah.
Pedro Neto probably would have really enjoyed all the crosses we were firing into open space, and maybe would have enjoyed a little bit of an early Christmas feast on those, Nick.
Instead of running around in an ice box, yes, absolutely, I can attest to that.
Oh, you would know better than most of us about how it actually felt to watch the match against Astana live. We're starting to see a couple of the quotes come out, not necessarily from Maresca yet, but from Thomas Frank, saying that they managed for 90 minutes to go toe to toe with Chelsea, especially in the second half. A draw would have been fair. I want to talk about maybe just the revisionist history of Thomas Frank in this match in particular.
I suppose they were there. Yeah. I mean, they
showed up to Stamford Bridge.
They were on the field, technically. I mean, that's fine. I don't think they were in this game until we let them back into it. Like, there was, they clearly set out in this game, and I suppose it's the right time to talk about the Cucurella, good and bad. They
Second
clearly,
yellow, red card. Yeah, you can go there now.
They clearly set out to have a very, very physical game. Every set piece, huge amounts of pushing and shoving. Every moment off the ball, contested, whatever. Not a ton of like dirty challenges, I would say, in this game. There weren't any of those, and I think that's fair enough. I don't mind a physical game. I think, especially having someone like Tosin in for this game, might have been a blessing in disguise because he's a big old lump of a guy. But they clearly set out to unsettle us from a physicality standpoint, right? So Cucurella gets a yellow card. It was deserved yellow card in like whatever the 85th minute or whatever, close to the end of the game. And then after the game, there's a little light pushing and shoving, and he gets a second yellow card, like as they're going to like shake hands. It's not a second yellow card at all. Like you look at the replay, it's very dumb. Cucurella probably should have a little bit more awareness, I would say, of the situation. Like he is the guy in that role. We're going away to Goodison, a place that we rarely get out with a good result next week. Perhaps just a little bit more self-control wouldn't be out of order from him, but it's a very, very soft call. And it's little stuff like this that now that Chelsea have climbed the table and are firmly kind of in second place in the table, that we have to, and Enzo Maresca and his team have to prepare for. In fact, if I were him running practices, I would secretly designate someone who's going to upset the order of the practice just to make sure that we are able to contain ourselves moving forward. Because the better you are, the more you get targeted. This is just the way the league works. We've seen it a billion times, and we need to be ready for that. Like this was just a small taste of what's to come, right? I mean, you have guys like Yanolt, at the end of the game, right? Caicedo goes over and pushes him over pretty conclusively, but he's been, he's being shithoused to everyone else, right? We have guys who are holding their guys on corners. You have to be able to lift yourself above that and be ready. It's not say don't be physical, but be smarter. And that's, I think, something that maybe Cucurella was just not necessarily in the right mind frame for at the end of the game. And it's potentially going to cost us, right? Because he's been playing great.
It is wild that Banks went the entirety of the match up until the 90th minute to make that the time he decided to go
the other thing, dude.
Pull cards in the pocket.
Where's the fucking consistency, man? Come on. Like, where is it? Because I would argue that there on every set piece there could have been a yellow card. If we're going to go by that,
sure.
Like there's pushing on every single set piece. So you're going to let all that go. But then at the end of the game, a couple of pushes and you're like, oh.
I do think that brings up the, looking ahead just a touch here, that does mean in the match against Everton, the trip to Goodison, there is going to need to be some type of shift in the lineup. I mean, obviously we got players like Pedro Neto back, but Cucurella not available now. Sam, in terms of a thought for the back line, what are you thinking in terms of the fullback situation? Where do we go? Do we potentially see Josh get a nod for a start? That would be a very interesting wrinkle here. Do we think it's, say, Caicedo right back, Lavia comes into midfield, and then we put Gusto on the left-hand side, which hasn't always panned out perfectly? Like, where are you at least mentally thinking so far? What will we potentially want to do to set up in that match against Everton?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the easiest thing to do is put Josh on the right-hand side. And maybe Gusto at left back. So I really don't know how he's going to make the left side work. Is it going to be Gusto playing an advanced role like Cucurella, which again would pose a lot of issues because we've seen him play in that role and there are some technical difficulties. But obviously, Josh as that third centre back, he's played that in Astana, so he's definitely there in terms of knowing how he needs to function in that back line. So yeah, against a pretty physical Everton side, against the god of set play XG and playing, Route One football. I think you would want a tall freak athlete in there trying to sort of keep the box empty. So
Boy,
I'd be happy with that.
you want to talk about back-to-back games against teams who can do set pieces. Like, I mean, this is
Mhm.
like these two teams are about as well. I mean, Arsenal's now prime Stoke, as we all know, but I think the rest of the league, like these are two of the better teams in that regard, and they're big and physical. So we got to be ready.
We'll do more of a wholesome, I think, Everton preview as we get closer to it. But I do think it's interesting. They're a team that drew with Arsenal. They beat Wolves for nothing. They lost to United for nothing. But I guess United are good again because they beat Man City today. So there's that. But they also drew against Brentford. So like it's a very interesting identity team in terms of like who do they show up as? How do they play? How are they able to kind of produce the result and what we're looking at? You know, I think that maybe shifts the conversation a touch, Nick. Title race? Question mark.
Stop it. I've already
Stop
answered
it.
this. I've already answered.
I'll say Nico Jackson is there with you. He did have a quote after the game. They asked him about Chelsea being 2 points behind Liverpool. He says, I don't know. I really don't know what a title race is, to be honest, which, to be fair, if you've been at Chelsea for 2 seasons.
Hey, babe, there it is. That's it. That's what I'm saying.
Chelsea supporters who've started rooting for the club in the past couple of years are not sure what a title race is either. It's not necessarily involved us. We've not had an invitation to the party, but we do now. His response finished up with, I don't even look at the table. So I feel like he's in the camp that you are, but just in terms of the positivity, getting the result, the importance that this had here with 3 points, being now 2 points behind Liverpool or at the top. They do have that game in hand. So, you know, even if we win against Everton, they get the opportunity to gazump back. This puts pressure on Liverpool. Like, we are getting our business done. We're putting ourselves in a position to capitalize on maximum points, and then just let the chips fall as they may.
Handle your business and see how it shakes out. I mean, that's all you can do. Like when you're down against an opponent in the table, all you can do is win, and then whatever happens after that, right? Still plenty of time to go in the year. Said I wouldn't comment on this until we're at least halfway through. We're not halfway through, so I'm not commenting on it. But, you know, this is 7 wins in a row in all comps. I think at least 5 in a row in the Premier League, 34 points already, 18 goal difference in the league. That is tied with Liverpool right now. They have the game in hand, of course. What this really does is put a ton of pressure on Arsenal and City. And Nottingham Forest, top 4 contenders, of course.
Perennial top 4 challengers.
Yes.
Nottingham Forest.
But it puts a huge amount of pressure down as well. And you know, again, if you would have said, hey, top 4 at the beginning of the season at this stage, I would have bitten your hand off. So,
well, 6 points ahead of Forest, 7 points ahead of City, 9 points ahead of Villa in 6th place. I mean, like, this is a very, very good predicament for Maresca, for this team, for this club to have heading into now the back half of December as the matches are going to continue to come fast and fierce, Sam. I mean, I guess just thinking about this weekend, thinking about what this does for the belief, the reality of this team, defining an opportunity to believe that they can be in this conversation. How are you feeling about maybe just the psychological effects that this is going to have, particularly with a team that has not really challenged for anything seriously in quite some time?
I mean, I would say do what Leicester did, you know, with an Italian manager who had ties to Leicester. Just keep your head down and take one game at a time. Just that's what you have to do. And in a position where you don't have any pressure at all, nobody expected you to be here. There were other teams that were supposed to take your place. I think that's all you have to do. You have to keep doing respect to your numbers. And even the ones that I was quite cynical of have been on the rise. The attacking numbers look good. We're conceding fewer shots every single game. Again, today the only problem was that I saw 70 minutes of the game and Brentford barely had a shot, barely had a big chance. And in the last 15 minutes, we conceded four big chances that actually put Brentford ahead of us on XG. Now, if we can take out those spells, those 15-minute spells, those 20-minute spells from our game, then I'm pretty sure then you get very close to Liverpool's level. Obviously, I know that there's going to be a little bit of a bump somewhere. It's going to happen to us. It's going to happen to Liverpool. Probably they're going through it because after they lost Konate, they've been, a little wonky. But I
Mhm.
expect us to happen, go through the same patch. But if you're able to navigate that, um, then even the realist in me would probably say it is time to sort of put your retro shirts back on and maybe hope for the best.
Pop the retro shirt back on. I didn't realize that was part of a requirement to get ready for the rally here.
Our boy Insof is right. Right. If we continue these performances, then we can talk. That is exactly where we should be. We have to continue the performances. Again, you win at Goodison, a place where we never win next week. That's another, like, I look at that as like almost 6 points gained in my head because of the way that we usually play there. And it's like, I know that that's not how math works, but you start to do some of these things that we haven't historically done that well. Okay.
So it's four losses and a draw in our last five at Goodison. In case you were wondering, just what the
Just how
recent
bad it
record has
is.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah. We like to beat them at home. We really don't mind beating them at Stamford Bridge.
By
It's just
large margins, even. But
yeah, 6-0
I
last time we
I
faced them.
I only call the stadium isn't because there's nothing good about it at all.
Oh, well, it's a sin to think that way, Sam. So we're going to try to spin this one around just a little bit here. Other kind of callouts from the match, players maybe we didn't touch on or performances
yes.
that we want to kind of highlight. I mean, I think maybe I'd love to see Sancho shoot a little bit more versus potentially try to pass it in. That was kind of my one, like, what would I like to see a player do differently the next time they're on the pitch? That was the one I kind of circled. And then Madueke, obviously, I think got a little bit more involved later. But trying to find the right pass is still not always hitting, whether it's either the ball in the Enzo, which maybe could have gotten the cut back to Cole. Like, I think there was some just opportunities to combine a little bit better, but those were the two I noticed. Did you have a few more, Nick?
Yeah, I think Sancho was really interesting today. I think he did a lot of like really good off the ball work and tracking back. I mean, his heat map is the entire left side. It's very good, and I think that kind of shows exactly kind of what he was doing and how he was impacting proceedings. I think the frustrating part of his game was that in the moments where he's one on one with the goalkeeper and then decides to futz around with the ball and then gets into the box, doesn't shoot, makes the wrong pass. It's like I want to see him put on his shooting boots every game because especially in a game where Cole Palmer was being marked by 2 or 3 Brentford players, it was clear that Brentford's objective was 1, to stay compact, and 2, to not let Cole Palmer get into dangerous areas. And they by and large did that. He had a couple of pops, but nothing crazy. You have to Madueke, Sancho, Jackson, Enzo. Those players have to step up and accumulate shots that Palmer isn't simply getting off. And that's what I want to see more of. And I thought we were starting to see more of it from Sancho. It just wasn't there today. But his work off the ball was in equal parts really, really good. And that's something that, Sam, I think you called out in the analysis of Sancho when we signed him on loan that you were really worried about. So are you impressed by what you're seeing from him?
100%, absolutely. That's something that really caught me off guard because
Yeah.
he came from, a psychological standpoint where obviously you expect a little bit of your mindset to drop. So I was worried whether that would affect his performances. But he's been sensational out of possession, where he's dropping to wing back, he's defending 1v1, he's tracking runners. There really hasn't been anything for me to complain about. So, Nick, that's absolutely spot on in terms of what you want. But just today, like Dan's point, Nico Jackson takes 7 shots today, which is the
Mhm.
highest that he's ever taken, in a game, in a single game throughout his career, tied with the West Ham game earlier, like the late last season. in the 5-0 win, where he also took 7. Madueke had, I think, 7 or 8 shots today. Palmer had 4 shots today, and then Sancho had just the 1. So there is a little bit of a bleak spot there. If you can amp up his shots to 3-4, we blow Brentford away. We absolutely do. But I also like the fact that he's a different kind of a winger. He's created 4 chances today. His expected assist was the highest, I think, among any of those guys in there. So he's also offering you a creative edge. He's creating those shots. He obviously has otherworldly close control in those tight spaces. When he sat Flecken down, I was like, Jesus, like what is he going to do now? But just that little bit of, you know, just that last moment of magic missing there. But if he can pull that off, then I wouldn't be worried about it at all. But obviously, I'd love to see him shoot more. But the rest of it is just great, which is the same that I can see on Madueke as well. Everything is good. The out of possession work is very strong. It's just that final thing that he needs to improve. 7 shots from a winger is nuts, absolutely nuts, and I love that.
I would also say for him, this development of this back post in swinger for him, that obviously Cucurella gets the first goal on. Boy, that's dangerous if we can start honing that regularly, because it is such a hard ball for a goalkeeper to spot and react to. And we have the players to make that run regularly. So if he's able to put the ball there and they're able to recognize when he has the ball in a particular spot on the field that would allow for that angle, for them to make the run consistently is critical, because that's saucy when it's there. And I think it was a really good delivery for the first goal.
Last part I want to just talk about a little bit too. I mean, this felt like a bounce back game, especially after what was a very unfortunate 3 goals allowed against Tottenham for Levi Colwill. I thought this was one of his better performances on the season as a whole. I mean, I think the Villa match would probably be one of the better ones too, but this was strong. The one block he had that he just kind of made that real quick turn kick out to prevent what I thought would have been a goal. Like, that's the type of tackle and interception that is like, that is worth as much of a goal. I felt like in general, good ball delivery, good movement forward. Clearly without Wes out, like your options of either Badiashile, who's seemingly going to be out for maybe an extended period of time. We don't know yet the extent of his injury. With Tosin coming in, and I know we mentioned the Mbuemo element to that, and maybe kind of taking a little bit of the shine off of his game. This felt like a really good continue growing up opportunity for Levi Colwill as, really, an option 1 in that center back position out of our current crop of players.
Yeah, I mean, a key pass. The crosses into the box weren't necessarily great, but, I understood what he was doing and why he was doing it. 4 clearances, 1 block shot, which was critical. 1 4 of 7 aerial duels as well. It just looked a little bit more up for it today. I think knew he was going to be in a fight, right? I mean, this was physical. He knew he had to be one of the big contributors. I think it helps to have Tosin in this game, who is just a huge profile. But yeah, he performed really, really well in this game, and I was intrigued to see how he was going to react, because I don't think he's been outstanding this season necessarily. I think he's been passable for a lot of it, but this was a very, very good, strong, leadership filled performance. There was one little anecdote I'll pull out from the first half where they're on corner duty and he's getting pushed around, and he takes a second and reorganizes, and they shift into a different little look where there's like they basically ran into a stack, so the Brentford players couldn't grab onto him immediately. And that's just a little bit of a tweak for him, right? It's not just bull in a china shop, run through someone. It's like, I'm getting grabbed. Let's reset this thing. Let's make it a little bit harder for them to see which way we're going. So I'm starting to see some of that from him, which is good.
Well, and the Maresca comments are coming out as we start to round out this conversation, he did kind of say we were in the control of the game, except for the last 10 minutes when we concede. It's normal. We created chances. We could have scored more. We deserved to win the game, which I think we would agree with. Chelsea absolutely deserved to win the game and did give up control at one point. He also mentioned about the Cucurella goal. It's all about position. You have to be in the right position. If you are, you'll have the chance. We worked with Mark in this game to arrive and be in the right position. We're very happy. It's not something normal because he's not a big fullback. We worked in this week for this kind of situation. We've been really lucky. And I think that speaks to, just some of the preparation too, Sam. Like, we're seeing some really interesting deployments. We're seeing the translation from what is being done at Cobham to the result on the pitch. And kind of cool to see that, like, particularly called out as something that they identified as an opportunity, and it came good.
I mean, I love the flexibility. To be honest, there are teams that we know are vulnerable through the center, like Newcastle, and in those games, he tells Jackson to pull out Dan Burn. And then there are games like this where, Brentford are weak on the wings because they've got somebody like a Keane Lewis Potter, who's actually like more of an attacking wide player playing wing back. And then suddenly Maresca learns to get his team to attack on the wing. And I think it's great that you have a manager who's able to exploit those weaknesses and actually tailor a game plan to sort of address those things. So superb. I couldn't be, happier to have a manager who's able to focus on these things. And again, we talk about Tosin, who might have been a lucky inclusion, but he comes in against a team that is pretty good from corners, pretty good from set pieces. From the first two throw-ins, which I thought there would be a big chance created from one of those issues. Both times he gets his head on the ball, clears it. One of the most dangerous corners in the game, he clears it. 7-on-7 on the day, didn't lose a single aerial duel. And that's what we wanted, right? You have a B team where there are players itching to play in the Premier League, and he's able to bring them in effortlessly and make sure that the team doesn't drop. So I think so far so good. Obviously, there's little margin for error, so I'm not getting carried away. But really, like up until this point, his little adjustments, the way that he's changed it. I love this tweak that he made against Tottenham, where he said, okay, right back Moises Caicedo not working, bring him to the center, put Gusto out, try to expand the pitch and basically have him underlapping and pushing Destiny Udogie back, putting Heung-min Song back, and instantly we went from just playing super passively to dominating the game. So it's superb. I mean, he did an entire thesis at Coverciano on chess, and it definitely looks like he knows which move to play, and he anticipates 2 moves ahead, which is excellent.
There's quotes from Moises Caicedo. Dan, do you care if I enter the fold here?
Please feel free. I'm not, I can't do a great impersonation, so I'll let you throw out anything you want to do there.
Impersonation is not really what I was going for, but he did say, we're enjoying it. We're doing fantastic. N'Golo Kante is my idol. I try and help the team. He's a very big player. I try my best. Boy, that's speaking directly to old Nick Verlaney right there. That is my man knows what's up. We also had Nico Jackson quotes as well. Talking about the miss, he said, I missed that one from 6 yards. I was thinking I'll get another one and try and score to help the team win. I did exactly that. It's all about getting more experience. I'm getting more confident. So, vibes.
Well, like Nick, Chelsea in second place on the table with 34 points after 16 games. It took us 24 games last season to hit 34 points. So definitely the positive vibes, the positive season in the moment. Chelsea have very few fixtures left for the last bit of this calendar year. We had Shamrock Rovers to finish our UECL competition, our 6 matches that we played there. We have Everton, the trip to Goodison. We get to host Fulham on Thursday night football. And then the last match of the calendar year ends up being a away trip to Ipswich before the start of 2025, which sees us play Crystal Palace away. So, I mean, not a ton of travel, thankfully, after the massive trip to Kazakhstan that Chelsea underwent here. It will be a little bit easier to manage for this team. But, I think in that regard, we've got a fun run of fixtures coming up. all massive opportunity for Chelsea to continue to advance and to push forward and to get an opportunity to continue to make their case that they are in a conversation about the title. And if you're 2 points off the lead, and even with the game in hand, you're part of the conversation at minimum.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, just keep winning. And like result weekends like this, Arsenal draw, Liverpool draw, City lose inexplicably. Yeah, I mean, put it in my veins. Let's go. Like it's a great weekend for us. Like,
well, yeah. We have to celebrate that great weekend with this wonderful live stream. A lot of great conversation about this match too.
Shameless plug at the end. If you are interested in going to London with us, details officially coming soon, but I would just on your calendar block off March 28th through April 3rd. Just block it off.
That's right. Another London is Blue group trip on the books for 2025. First time in a little bit that we've done one of those. Very excited to do that. But look, we had Sam, CFC Central here. We had Nick, myself, Dan, and we had a wonderful conversation about Chelsea getting it done against Brentford. Absolutely dispelling the current curse and moving forward in the Premier League table once again. That's going to do it for this live stream or the audio version of the podcast if you listen back, and just leave 5-star review on that as well if you can. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.